The Newsline.
Hello and welcome back to People's TV. In the year 1992, the then government of Denmark made a decision that altered the course of Danish history. Well, in a negative way. They granted permission to 321 Palestinian refugees to take refuge in Denmark. Then in 2019, almost 22 years later, produced a study report concerning these 321 Palestinians who arrived in Denmark as refugees. What the researchers discovered were shocking and absolutely scary. The study revealed 204 out of the 321 refugees were arrested for crimes committed on Danish soil and 71 have been prosecuted already and in prison spending their sentences. To make matters worse, 176 had become refugees once again, indicating they were on the government-sponsored welfare again. As a percentage, 63% of these refugees had become criminal offenders. The story did not stop with the first wave of arrivals. Over the years, the original group of 321 Palestinians settled in Denmark and started families. By 2019, they had nearly 1,000 children, 999 to be exact. However, the long-term outcome of this next generation raised serious concerns. The same study found that 337 of them faced criminal charges as adults, with 132 already serving time in prison. Additionally, 372 were once again dependent on state welfare. What began as an act of generosity had, within a generation, produced another cycle of lawlessness and dependency, one that left Denmark questioning the true cost of its open-door policy. The state welfare system covers almost every aspect of life: housing, education for children, healthcare, food, transportation, and even fuel allowances, placing a massive financial strain on the Danish government. Ideally, refugees are expected to become self-sufficient over time, allowing the government to prioritize its own citizens. Yet, in this case, the opposite occurred. Instead of integrating and contributing, a significant portion of the refugee population became a long-term economic burden and a growing security concern. According to the same report, 34% of the Palestinian refugees who entered Denmark have engaged in criminal activity, while 37% remain entirely dependent on government welfare programs. In a recent interview with a Danish television network, a judge made a striking statement: Palestinians should not be admitted into any country. Ironically, this same judge had played a leading role in facilitating the entry of the original group of Palestinian refugees into Denmark decades earlier. While Denmark only confronted the consequences of that decision in 2019, the broader regional context tells a similar story. Following the Six-Day War, Israel offered the Gaza Strip back to the Palestinians and returned the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt. While Egypt accepted the Sinai, it outright refused to take in the Palestinians. This refusal, mirrored by other neighboring Arab nations, suggests that even within the region, there was no willingness to accommodate the Palestinian population. Sri Lanka has a crucial lesson to learn from these examples. The government must exercise extreme caution when it comes to admitting Palestinian refugees. Even their neighboring countries have consistently refused to host them, precisely because of the risks involved. While the Rohingya refugee situation sparked significant controversy in Sri Lanka, recent reports indicate that the government is planning to admit 2,000 Palestinian refugees. Given the experiences of countries like Denmark, such a decision could carry serious social, economic, and security implications. Sri Lanka would do well to prioritize the safety and welfare of its own citizens before taking on such a burden. A more serious concern, however, is the rise of radical Islam within the country. This growing influence poses a dual threat to Sri Lanka's stability. Firstly, certain groups openly express solidarity with internationally recognized terrorist organizations. They have organized mass protests and even pressured the government to support initiatives like the so-called humanitarian mission, the Freedom Flotilla, which is known to back Hamas terrorists. Secondly, these groups have demanded restrictions on Israeli tourists in Sri Lanka, using alleged religious grievances against Jews as justification. Both actions highlight the potential for radicalized communities to challenge national security and social cohesion if left unchecked. We must be careful not to undermine what remains of our nation's reputation. Sri Lanka has long identified as a non-aligned country, refraining from taking sides in international politics, and realistically, we cannot afford to. Israel is far from isolated on the global stage. Countries such as the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, Denmark, and many other European nations have expressed solidarity with Israel. While Canada and France have publicly supported the idea of a sovereign Palestinian state that reflects the policies of their current governments, not the consensus of their populations. Ground realities often differ from political rhetoric. In the United Kingdom, For example, 9 out of 10 citizens oppose the Prime Minister's decision to recognize a sovereign Palestinian nation. Sri Lanka must take note of these lessons before committing to any course that could compromise its standing or security. In this context, Sri Lanka cannot take sides, whether with Palestine or Israel. The country must uphold its non-aligned status. Yet, radical Islamist groups in Sri Lanka are pressuring the government to act otherwise, casting a shadow over the nation's stability. These developments serve as a warning that the country could be at serious risk. While the government's plans for development in the northern regions are welcome and necessary, such programs must also ensure that responsible authorities take steps to prevent radicalism from sparking another civil conflict. National security and social cohesion must remain a top priority alongside economic progress. Denmark, however, recognized the problem earlier than most European countries and took the bold step of banning the burqa. Much of Europe, by contrast, has reached a point where the situation seems beyond remedy. Sri Lanka risks following a similar path unless this democratically elected government takes decisive action. The administration has a mandate to govern in the interest of the nation as a whole, without yielding to pressure from minority groups seeking to dictate policy. It is our sincere hope that the government seizes this opportunity before it is too late, safeguarding both national security and social cohesion for the future. If this report helped you see the situation on the ground clearly, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to People's TV, where truth has no agenda, and facts speak louder than spin.
Subscribe us for more details.